My name is Eric. I'm 29, and until last year, I thought I understood what family meant. Not the Hallmark card version, but the kind you build your life around, even if it means carrying more than your share of the weight. I've always been the quiet one, the responsible son, the one who sends flowers on birthdays and picks up the slack when nobody else even notices there is slack. But I didn't grow up thinking I'd be the backbone of a family that constantly made me feel like I was disposable. That part happened slowly, almost quietly, like rot under the floorboards you don't see until it all caves in. Growing up, I was the middle child. My older brother, Adam, was the golden boy, varsity football, charming, always with a crowd around him. My younger sister, Mia, was the princess from the moment she was born. And me? I was the one who got B-plus grades and was told I wasn't living up to my potential. I didn't mind, really. I kept my head down, got a scholarship, moved out, and eventually started my own small IT firm that, by some miracle, took off after 3 grueling years of ramen, 16-hour days, and getting ghosted by every investor I pitched to. The funny thing is, when I was struggling, they were silent. But when the money came in, that's when I became family again. It started small. My dad asked if I could help cover the remainder of Adam's car payments, just until he gets promoted. Then came Mia's private college tuition, only because the financial aid didn't cover enough. My mom needed help with the roof repairs, then the heating system, then the kitchen remodel she always dreamed of. And just like that, I was paying for 3 households and still getting texts like, "Can you Venmo me for the groceries?" At first, I didn't mind. I was grateful I could help. I even convinced myself I was building something, a legacy, maybe. I figured one day I'd be able to look back and say I made life better for the people I loved. But something about the way they treated it, like it was owed, like I wasn't doing anything special, started eating at me. Last Thanksgiving was the turning point. I hosted, not because I wanted to show off, but because I finally had a home big enough to seat everyone. I had it catered, cleaned, set up a fire pit in the backyard. Nobody offered to help, not even with dishes. Adam made a toast halfway through, talking about how lucky we are to have each other and how family always comes through, never once mentioning the fact that I paid for the whole thing. Mia brought her new boyfriend and barely looked up from her phone. And my dad? He spent the entire evening talking about how things were tougher in his day and how kids now have it easy. I swallowed it all with a smile. But inside, I was already pulling away. Then came the night that unraveled it. It was a random Tuesday, maybe 2 months later. I had just finished a long meeting and came home to a voice message from my dad. His voice was clipped, tired, and sharp in the way only dads know how to be. He said, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. If you had any pride, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just leave." It stunned me. For a second, I thought I misheard it. So I played it again. "All you do is take." I didn't yell. I didn't call back. I just stared at the message for a while, then walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights I used to love. Something inside me gave out quietly, like an old hinge snapping under weight. I packed a bag that night and left. No dramatic goodbye. No announcement. I even let my assistant know to pause all outgoing payments tied to family accounts. Just a clean, silent break. 3 days went by. Then a week. Radio silence. No one called. No one texted. It took them almost a full month to notice. Mia was the first. She called me late one Friday night, her voice shaky. "Eric, hey, I just logged into the school portal and my tuition didn't go through this month. Did something happen with the account?" I could hear the panic she was trying to smother. That fake casual tone you use when you're trying not to sound desperate. I replied with just one text. Thought I never gave this family anything. No follow-up. No explanation. Just that. She didn't respond. But within the hour, I had 4 missed calls from my mom, 2 from Adam, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemail from my dad? Hilarious in a dark way. "Eric, we need to talk. Whatever this little stunt is, it's not funny. Your sister's future is on the line. No apology. Just demands. Just that same old tone that said you owe us." That weekend, I flew to Denver. I'd never been, but I needed somewhere far enough to feel like I'd escaped orbit. I stayed in a small Airbnb overlooking the mountains. Slept better than I had in years. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't check my email. I didn't open any messages. I let the world spin without me. And back home? That's where it all started falling apart. Mia's school sent a notice of pending withdrawal due to non-payment. Adam's car, still unpaid, was repossessed. My parents' mortgage payment bounced. And just like that, the foundation they built on my silence cracked wide open. They started reaching out to extended family, telling their version of events, how I cut them off out of nowhere and abandoned my responsibilities. But the thing is, you can't rewrite a story when too many people already know the truth. And a few of my cousins? They knew. They'd seen the pattern for years. I got a message from one of them, Emma, my mom's niece. She said, "I've always admired how patient you are, but I'm glad you finally stopped being their safety net." That message hit harder than I expected. Because the truth is, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But once you take away the thing they use to control you, once they realize they need you more than you ever needed them, that's when the real unraveling begins. I spent a week in Denver, mostly doing nothing. I'd walk to a little coffee shop near the Airbnb every morning, journal for a bit, then wander around downtown just to remind myself what uninterrupted silence felt like. No buzzing phone, no obligation, no one asking, "Can you just do me one more favor?" It was strange, at first, how foreign that calm felt. Like I had to unlearn the habit of bracing for someone else's disappointment. By the second week, I'd rented a car and driven out to Boulder. I hiked alone, something I'd always wanted to do but never got around to, because every time I planned a trip, someone in the family needed a bailout. A broken AC, a late credit card. Mia once called me from a resort in Cancun saying she lost her wallet and needed me to wire her emergency cash. That memory popped into my head as I stood at the edge of a cliff trail, wind cutting through my jacket, the entire valley stretched out below me. I laughed out loud, really laughed. It echoed off the rocks. It took 3 full weeks before my mom broke the silence with something more than passive-aggressive voicemails. She emailed me. The subject line, "We need you to come home." No greeting. Just a long block of text that started with, "I don't know what's gotten into you," and spiraled into, "Your father is furious." Then, "We've done so much for you," and ended with, "Family doesn't abandon family." I stared at it for a long time. Family doesn't abandon family. Except they did. Every time they made me feel like a debit card with a heartbeat. Every birthday they forgot. Every time they took money from me without a thank you. Every holiday where I sat in the background while Adam gave his speeches and Mia got showered in gifts. They didn't call it abandonment. They called it tradition. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Daniel, who'd helped me set up a trust fund years ago. I told him to start the process of transferring the remaining educational payments to a scholarship program for first-gen college students, the ones who actually needed help, the ones who wouldn't laugh behind my back while draining my bank account. I also asked him to look into who was listed on the deed for the lake house, the one my parents used every summer, paid off in full by me, under the false promise that it would be a shared family investment. Turns out, my name was still on the paperwork. So I made a decision. That Sunday morning, I booked a flight back home, not to reconcile, not to be guilt, but to collect receipts. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I landed around noon, picked up a rental, and drove straight to the house. The same house I helped renovate when Dad threatened to sell it unless someone paid to fix the water damage. It looked the same, familiar and fake, like a movie set built to look like home. As I pulled up the driveway, I saw Adam's old pickup parked outside. I figured he moved back in after the repo. I didn't knock. I walked in with the spare key my mom forgot I had. The moment I stepped into the living room, I heard voices. "He's being dramatic," Adam was saying. "He'll come crawling back once he gets over himself." Mia's voice followed, quieter. "I just don't get why he's doing this. I mean, it's not that much money to him, is it?" My dad grumbled something I couldn't quite make out. Then, loud and clear, "Eric's always been the weakest, hiding behind his computer, acting like money makes him special." I stood there in the hallway, unseen, as they continued tearing me apart like I wasn't the reason the lights were on. I didn't cry. I didn't storm in. I didn't even feel anger. Just confirmation. They never saw me. Not really. I backed out quietly and drove to the lake house. I walked through the front door, took one long look at the open-plan kitchen, the wall of family photos that didn't include a single one of me, and started snapping pictures for the real estate listing. By nightfall, my lawyer had everything he needed to initiate the sale. That was Saturday. On Monday, I sent one final message in the family group chat. "You said I never gave this family anything. So I'm finally giving you what you've always acted like you wanted: distance. No more tuition. No more car payments. No more roof repairs. Sell your own memories. I'm out." I left the group chat and blocked them all. I thought that would be the end of it. But what I didn't realize was just how deep the web of dependence had gone and how fast it would unravel once I cut every thread. Because within the week, Mia was facing expulsion. Adam? Fired after missing too many shifts trying to figure things out. My parents? Let's just say their bank called with questions about a mortgage they could no longer afford. And me? Well, I was already halfway to the airport for a new trip. This time, Tokyo. First class. No guilt. No strings. But the real kicker? What happened the next time they tried to crawl back? I was somewhere over the Pacific when my phone finally caught up to the chaos I'd left behind. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. Friends of Mia, probably, or someone trying to talk sense into me on my family's behalf. There were texts from my dad that looked like they started as threats, but quickly unraveled into desperate half-sentences like, "We didn't mean it that way," and "You're still our son." That one made me laugh. I didn't listen to a single voicemail, didn't open any of the attachments. I just watched the notifications stack up like a silent slideshow of panic. It's funny how people who say you've never given anything suddenly remember exactly how much you gave once it's gone. Tokyo was everything I needed: clean, quiet, anonymous. I wandered through temples and neon-lit arcades, let my mind breathe in a way I didn't know was possible. No guilt weighing down my shoulders. No surprise emergencies. For the first time in my life, I was just me. Not someone's backup plan. Not the family fixer. 2 weeks into the trip, I finally unblocked just one person, Emma, my cousin. She'd sent a single message during the whole fallout. No pleading, no drama. Just, "When you're ready to talk, I'm here." Not to convince you, just to listen. I met up with her after I got back. We sat in a cafe near her apartment, and she brought her laptop. "I want to show you something," she said, sliding it across the table. It was a Reddit thread. Of all things, Mia had posted, under a throwaway account, asking for financial help to stay in school after an unexpected family emergency. She told a story that painted me as the unstable one. Said I'd abandoned the family for no reason. Claimed I was having a breakdown. People were donating money. Strangers. Emma looked at me, tight-lipped. "She's raised almost 6,000 so far. I figured you should know." I stared at the screen, feeling a twist in my gut that wasn't anger so much as sadness. There it was again. That same story, reshaped to fit the victim role. Only this time, she was doing it publicly, monetizing it, weaponizing strangers' sympathy. And worst of all, she still didn't see what she'd done. That night, I didn't rage post or call her out directly. I did something quieter. I took screenshots of every payment I'd made toward her education, bank transfers, tuition receipts, even the textbook fund I'd wired during her freshman year. I uploaded them in a private Imager album. No names, no dramatic captions, just dates, dollar amounts, and payment confirmations. Then I posted one anonymous comment on the thread. "Before you donate, maybe ask where the other $90,000 went." Some people forget who helped them when the help stops. It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. But within 24 hours, her post was removed by moderators for suspicious activity, and the comments turned. That was the first real consequence any of them faced. The second came a week later, when I received a certified letter at my office. It was from my dad, not handwritten, typed like some legal notice. It opened with, "We are formally requesting a meeting to discuss the breakdown of our family dynamic." I almost choked laughing, like they were trying to hold a board meeting to fix what they broke. But buried in the legalese was the real reason they reached out. They wanted a portion of the proceeds from the lake house sale. Apparently, they believed they had emotional equity in the property. I passed the letter to Daniel without a word. He read it, smirked, and said, "Want me to send them a reminder that emotional equity doesn't hold up in court?" I nodded. And then we did one better. We sent them a copy of the original agreement, one Dad had signed years ago when I first offered to pay for the lake house. It clearly stated, in his own words, "I acknowledge that this home is purchased by and remains the property of Eric, last name. I relinquish all future claims." He'd forgotten, or hoped I had. That letter shut them up real fast. But the silence didn't last. Not once word got out that I was selling the main house too. See, while I was in Tokyo, Daniel and I had been working on a quiet side project. Turns out, years ago, I'd loaned my parents a large sum under a verbal agreement when they couldn't keep up with the mortgage. They'd never paid me back. Daniel tracked every deposit, compiled every wire transfer, and we filed a lien on the house. They now owed me well over $80,000, which meant I could legally force a sale. Emma called me that night. Eric, they're panicking. Your mom called mine in tears. Your dad's threatening to go on social media. I sighed. Let him. I've got receipts. Let's see who wins that PR war. But what I didn't tell her, that I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. I was doing it for closure. Because what none of them realized was that I had given them everything, my time, my savings, my loyalty, and they mistook it all for weakness. They thought I was a faucet they could twist on whenever they were thirsty. And now they were learning what thirst really feels like. And yet, the most satisfying moment hadn't even come yet. Because the day the house went up for auction, I walked through the front door one last time. I parked across the street the morning of the auction. The air had that sharp, stale chill that always hung over our neighborhood in the early fall. I sat in the car for a minute, just watching. It was surreal seeing the home I grew up in, this place that had absorbed so much history, joy, bitterness, now with a small white sign staked in the front lawn. Notice of foreclosure. Auction today. No trespassing. I got out, hands in my pockets, walking slowly toward the house. The door was already open. Daniel was inside, speaking with the auction rep, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a no-nonsense look. He nodded when he saw me. You don't have to be here for this, he said, gently. I want to be. And I did. Not for vengeance. Not for the spectacle. But because this moment deserved a witness, someone to see it, feel it, and make sure it didn't just slip by like everything else I'd swallowed over the years. I walked through the living room, slowly, as if I were trying to absorb it all one last time. The dent in the hardwood from when Adam threw a baseball inside. The faded stain on the carpet where Mia spilled nail polish and blamed it on me. The wall where my parents used to pin up report cards and drawings until they quietly stopped adding mine. It was strange how little of myself I saw here, like I'd been a ghost in my own family story. I stepped into the kitchen next. That one hit harder. I remembered late nights helping Mom prep for holiday dinners, scrubbing dishes while she pretended not to hear Dad ranting in the other room, laughing with Emma over burnt pies and undercooked turkeys. And now? It was just a kitchen, a box of walls and forgotten effort. There was a photo still on the counter, one of the entire family, taken 2 Christmases ago at my expense. I remembered paying the photographer's deposit, the matching outfits they insisted on, and how they cropped me out when they posted it online. I picked up the photo, looked at it for a long moment, then turned it face down. By noon, a few cars had started to arrive. A couple of serious bidders, some curious neighbors, and then, finally, my family. They pulled up in Dad's old Chevy, all packed in like some twisted family road trip. Mia got out first. Her face was blotchy, red-rimmed eyes behind oversized sunglasses. Adam followed, scowling, clearly here just to play enforcer. And then my parents. Mom looked worn down, 10 years older than the last time I'd seen her. Dad, well, he still walked like he thought he owned the ground. He spotted me instantly. Eric, he called out, voice low and bristling. We need to talk. Now. I didn't move. He strode up, Adam a step behind him like a shadow. You're really doing this? Dad said. You're going to humiliate your own family? Over what, exactly? Some perceived slight. I looked him in the eye for the first time in years. It's not a slight, I said calmly. It's a pattern, and it ends today. You ungrateful little, he started, but I raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. Mia joined them now, her voice cracking. I'm going to lose my scholarship because of this. I had to drop 2 classes already. Why are you doing this to us? I turned to her. I paid for your first 3 years. Every tuition bill. Every textbook. You never said thank you. Not once. Instead, you let them convince you I was the problem. I didn't, she started. You posted online that I was unstable, I said, pulling out my phone. You lied to strangers for money. And now you want sympathy? Her face crumpled. Mom finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse. We're a family, Eric. Families don't do this to each other. No, I said. Families don't take like this. You took everything, my time, my money, my trust. And when I stopped giving, you called me selfish. The auctioneer's voice rang out then, sharp and professional. We'll begin the auction in 5 minutes. Dad looked around, suddenly less sure of himself. You can't do this. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for us. You're right, I said. So I'm taking it back. They stood there, rooted to the driveway, helpless for the first time in years. And I walked away. The house sold within the hour. A retired couple from out of town, looking for a place near their grandkids. They paid in full. I signed the paperwork, handed Daniel the keys, and never looked back. 3 weeks later, the moving truck arrived. My parents tried to fight it, claimed they had rights, but the court order was clear. They had 30 days from the date of the sale. No exceptions. They didn't even pack everything. Just grabbed what they could and left the rest in piles. Years of clutter. Boxes of old trophies, broken appliances, forgotten memories. One of the movers found a journal of mine tucked in a box labeled junk. It was from high school. I flipped through it. Every page was full of goals: get into college, start a business, buy a house, take care of my family. Funny how none of those dreams ended the way I thought they would. I donated the furniture, trashed the rest. Emma helped me close out the estate. She was the only one who stayed neutral through it all and the only one I trusted. When it was over, she hugged me for a long time. "You did the right thing," she whispered, "even if it doesn't feel like it yet." And she was right. It didn't feel good, not in the traditional sense. There was no soaring victory, no final confrontation with slow clapping applause. Just silence. A sharp, echoing silence that slowly gave way to peace. I moved shortly after that. Bought a loft in a different city. Smaller. Simpler. But mine. No secret bills. No guilt. The calls eventually stopped. The emails dried up. And over time, even the bitterness faded. I didn't hate them. I just disconnected. Like finally cutting the last thread of a frayed rope that had been dragging me underwater for years. One night, I sat out on my balcony, sipping tea, watching the lights flicker in the building across the street. I thought about that last Thanksgiving, about the toast Adam made, about the way they all smiled like they were in a commercial, completely unaware that the glue holding them together was cracking. And I realized something. They were never really a family. They were a system. A system that only worked as long as I stayed silent, stayed useful, stayed small. And now? Now they had to learn how to stand without me. I got a message a few months later. An email. From Mia. I don't expect a response. I just wanted to say, "I get it now. And I'm sorry." I read it twice. Then once more. And then I archived it. Not out of spite, but because I no longer needed closure from them. I already had it from myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest. My name's Ella, and what's about to unfold is something I'm still processing. You ever feel like you've done so much for your family, and they turn around and treat you like you're a walking ATM? Well, let me take you back to when it all started. For context, I'm in my late 20s, and I have a decent job in tech. It's not glamorous, but it pays well enough that I can travel, indulge a little, and keep my life relatively stress-free. But for the last few years, every time my family went on vacation, somehow, I became the one footing the bill. It all began innocently enough. I started out paying for small things, meals here and there when they visited, an occasional birthday gift that wasn't quite enough to make me feel like I was being used. Then, one year, my family decided to go to the Bahamas for a vacation. It was supposed to be a family reunion of sorts, and I thought, why not? I'll cover a few expenses. You know, like helping them with the flights or covering the house rental. But that was just the beginning point. 1 year turned into 2, then 3, and suddenly, I was paying for the entire vacation. Every year. Flights, accommodations, the works. The thing is, I never asked for this. I never even offered. It just kind of happened. First, it was my parents, then my siblings, and eventually, my cousins jumped in. All of a sudden, I was the go-to person for travel money. And don't get me started on the guilt trips. It was always, "Ella, we know you have the money. You're doing so well in your career. We can't afford it, and you know we need this time together as a family. You don't mind, right?" Every time I felt uneasy about it, I'd push those feelings aside. I'd tell myself it wasn't a big deal because family is family, right? But after the 5th year of paying for everyone's vacation without ever receiving so much as a thank you, I started to feel, well, a little taken advantage of. I finally snapped when I received a text one day from my mom that I can't forget. I had just come back from a grueling work trip and was lying on my couch, catching up on sleep. My phone buzzed, and it was from my mom. "Hey, sweetie, we're planning our next trip. Just wanted to let you know it's going to be another expensive one. But don't worry, your dad and I already talked, and we've got it covered." She went on and on about how excited everyone was and how much they were looking forward to it. I didn't respond right away. I was tired, but something felt off. It didn't sit right with me that they had it covered. Yet I was always the one handing out the cash. Then, that afternoon, I got a group message from my dad. It It was one of those family chats where everyone chimes in, and the topic was the vacation. As usual, they were planning everything. But this time, the conversation turned into something that I couldn't ignore. My uncle, who's notorious for being blunt, casually typed in, "Ella won't mind paying for this one either. She's always been our cash cow, haha." Now, I don't know what hit me harder, the fact that he called me a cash cow or the fact that my own parents, let that comment slide. No response, no call out, nothing. The message just hung there like an elephant in the room. They didn't even acknowledge it. And here I was, the one who had been paying for the trips for years, and this was the thanks I got. For a minute, I was in shock. I reread the message a few times, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. They were all in on it. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a walking bank. It was like I'd been hit by a wave of realization. My generosity was being taken for granted. I didn't respond to the message. I just stared at the screen, my mind racing. That's when I made a decision. I was going to let them pay for this vacation themselves. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. I didn't even hint at it. I just stayed silent, waiting for them to come to me when the time came. Fast forward to the day the next trip was supposed to be booked. My mom texted me again. "Hey Ella, we're all set for the Bahamas next month. We were thinking of upgrading to a bigger house, and we were hoping you could help with the extra expenses. You know, we really need this getaway." The message was full of the usual guilt. But this time, I didn't respond right away. I waited a few hours, and then I did something I never thought I'd do. I sent them a message. "I think it's time you all handle it on your own this year. I've been covering for the last few years, and it's time you all pitch in. I can't keep doing this." And then I sat back, waiting. I didn't get an immediate reply. I didn't hear from anyone for a while, and that's when things started getting really tense. The phone calls started coming in the next day. My mom, my dad, and even my siblings, all asking the same question: "What do you mean? You're really not going to help?" The more they called, the more I realized how deep the entitlement ran. "Ella, come on," my mom pleaded. "We've always helped you when you needed us. This is family. We can't afford it without you." "I didn't ask you to help me all these years," I snapped back. "You just assumed, and I let it slide. But I'm done." The tension was thick, and I knew it was going to get worse. But what happened next? Well, that's where things took a turn. The next morning, I received a message that would change everything. The message I received the next morning was from my dad, and it wasn't what I expected at all. It was brief, but it hit me like a punch in the gut. "Ella, I need you to come to the house. Your mother and I need to talk." Now, I wasn't exactly thrilled about the prospect of sitting down with them, especially after what had just happened. But I knew avoiding this conversation would only make it worse. So, I drove to their house, my stomach in knots. When I walked in, my mom was sitting at the kitchen table, her arms crossed, looking more serious than I'd ever seen her. Dad was pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. "Ella, you don't understand," my dad started. "We didn't want to ask you for money again, but this is different. We've always helped you, and now it's your turn." I could feel my heart racing. "I've been helping you for years. I don't know how many times I've paid for flights and trips and houses, but I can't keep doing it. It's not fair." Mom sighed. "You've always been the one with the money, Ella. Why are you being so difficult? We've always done this together. This is just a little help, a little favor for the family. Why are you making it such a big deal?" Her words stung, but I bit my lip and stayed calm. "It's not just a little help anymore. It's always me, and I'm tired of it. You're our daughter. You should want to help us. You owe us," Dad suddenly snapped, his voice rising. The word "oh" made my blood boil. "I don't owe anyone anything," I said, struggling to keep my composure. "I've helped because I wanted to, but that's not the same as being taken for granted." My mom's eyes narrowed, and she got up from the table, walking toward me. "So you're saying you won't help your family when we need you? After everything we've done for you? You're just going to abandon us?" Her voice cracked, and I could see her trying to manipulate me with guilt, but I wasn't having it anymore. "No, I'm not abandoning you. I'm just saying no. You all can handle it on your own this time." For a moment, the room was silent. I could feel the tension rising, but I wasn't backing down. Then, my dad, his face flushed with anger, slammed his fist on the table. "You selfish little brat. We raised you to be better than this. What happened to the Ella who cared about her family?" He shouted. My mom immediately jumped in, trying to back up his words. "This is the thanks we get for supporting you all these years?" I stood there, my heart pounding. I was done. I had been walking on eggshells for too long, doing things to keep the peace. But this was it. It wasn't just the money. It was the way they saw me, not as their daughter, but as their financial safety net. I turned to leave, but as I reached for the door, my dad stopped me. "Ella, if you walk out of here now, don't bother coming back. We're done." I didn't say a word. I just walked out. The next few days were interesting, to say the least. My phone was blowing up with messages and calls from my parents, my siblings, even a few distant relatives. But this time, it wasn't just about the vacation. It was about everything I'd ever done for them. My oldest brother, Mark, called me first. "Ella, what the hell is going on? Why are you being such a diva about this? We've always helped each other out." I snapped back, "Yeah, always me helping out. I've had enough." Mark sighed. "This isn't you. What's the real problem? Why are you being like this?" I wasn't going to let him gaslight me into thinking I was in the wrong, so I laid it out. "The real problem is that every time we go on vacation, I end up paying for everything. And no one even cares. I've been the family ATM for years, and you all just assume I'll cover it." I could hear the hesitation in his voice. "But we're family, Ella. You're supposed to help family." "Help family?" I couldn't help myself. "You know what's funny? You've never helped me when I needed it. I've always been the one carrying all the weight." Mark didn't respond, but I could tell I had struck a nerve. It was silent for a beat before he said, "Okay, fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when it all blows up." That was the first taste of what was to come. It wasn't just my parents. It was the entire family turning on me. Every time I checked my phone, there was a new message, a new guilt trip, a new threat of what would happen if I didn't come through. But the thing is, I was past the point of caring. I had been pushed to my limit, and I wasn't going to fold. But the real kicker came when they all started talking behind my back. Literally. I found out through one of my cousins that my parents had sent a message to the rest of the family about me. They were making it seem like I was the unreasonable one. "Ella's being selfish," they said. "She doesn't care about family anymore." It was a smear campaign, and it was working. Everyone started turning against me. I was the villain now. A few weeks went by, and I was starting to feel the weight of everything. My phone had become a constant source of stress, but I didn't respond to anyone. I kept my distance. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from my dad. I was in the middle of work, but I answered anyway. I had a feeling this was the moment things were about to take a turn for the worse. "Ella, listen," my dad said, his tone much softer than it had been before. "I'm sorry. Your mom and we've been thinking. Maybe we've pushed too far. Maybe we didn't appreciate everything you've done." I almost laughed, but I didn't. This wasn't about an apology. This was about saving face. "You think?" There was a long pause before he spoke again. "We need you for the trip. You know we can't do it without you." I wasn't going to make it easy for him. "I think you should figure it out on your own. You always said we were family." Well, family helps each other without expecting everything in return. "Please, Ella. We're sorry," he begged. "Just this once." And that's when I decided to play my hand. I knew exactly how this was going to end. But what did I do next? As soon as my dad said those words, "just this once," I felt my patience snap. I wasn't going to be the one to fix their mess this time. I had done it for years, and every single time. It felt like they took advantage of me, never appreciating the sacrifices I made. I sat there, gripping the phone, taking deep breaths. "Dad, I've been saying no for weeks now. Why do you think I'm going to change my mind just because you're begging?" There was silence on the other end. Then, my dad's voice grew more defensive. "I don't know what happened to you. You used to be different. What happened to the Ella who cared about family?" That old guilt trip again. But I wasn't falling for it. Maybe I was the one who cared too much. "Maybe it's time for you all to see what life is like without me paying your bills." I could hear him trying to calm himself down. "Ella, you're overreacting. We're just asking for help with a trip. We've done so much for you." "Done for me?" I shot back. "I've done more for you than you've ever done for me. I paid for your vacations, your bills, your new car. And now, suddenly, I'm the one being selfish because I'm not going to fund your next trip? You don't get to twist this into being about me. This is about you all being so entitled that you think it's okay to use me like this. There was a long pause. I could tell my dad didn't have a response, but I wasn't finished. I was tired of being painted as the villain in their narrative. You've taken me for granted, Dad. All these years, I've been the cash cow, as you've so kindly put it. And you know what? That stops now. I don't believe this, he said, his voice cracking. You've changed so much. You don't care anymore. You're not the daughter I raised. You're right, I snapped. I'm not the daughter you raised. I'm someone who knows better than to let people walk all over me anymore. But I guess you won't learn that until it hits you. And just like that, I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with everything that had happened. The constant phone calls, the guilt trips, the barrage of angry messages from my relatives. It felt like they were all turning on me, calling me selfish, saying I was throwing away years of family loyalty. It was suffocating, and I was starting to feel isolated. The next morning, I got a text from my mom. It was a simple but telling one. Ella, you've hurt us. We've been trying to make things right, but you're pushing us away. Is money really more important than family? I sat there staring at the message for a long time. I could feel my anger bubbling up again. Money was not the issue. It was the manipulation, the constant using of me, the never-ending assumption that I was always going to be their solution to everything. I wanted to respond, but I decided to wait. I had to think this through carefully. I needed them to understand the gravity of what they were doing, and I needed them to realize they couldn't always depend on me to bail them out. A few days later, my parents sent me a message, one that was different from the others. It was an invitation to their house. They said they wanted to talk and make things right. I knew what this was. Another attempt at manipulation. I felt a sense of resolve in me. They thought they could just pull me back in with a few empty words. They didn't know that this time, I was going to make sure they felt the consequences of their actions. I showed up at their house, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. My dad opened the door, and before I could say a word, he stepped aside to let me in. Ella, we've been thinking, he began. We've been too hard on you. And we just wanted to say, we're sorry. We didn't mean to make you feel like a cash cow. I had to stifle a laugh. He was trying so hard to sound genuine, but I could see right through him. You know, that's funny, I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. I've been saying no for weeks now, and all of a sudden, you're sorry? You're really trying to pull the wool over my eyes with this, aren't you? Ella, we mean it, my mom chimed in. Well, we were wrong. We just didn't realize how much you were carrying. Oh, you didn't? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Because for years, I've been telling you how much I'm doing. But you all only ever saw me as the one who could fix everything. There was an uncomfortable silence. My parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but I wasn't done yet. I had something planned, something they would never expect. I've been thinking about your trip, I continued, leaning forward. And you know what? I've decided I'm not going to pay for it. But here's the kicker. I paused, watching them both closely. I could see the panic in their eyes. They were finally starting to realize they weren't going to win me over with a quick apology. You can't afford it. I'm not coming to your rescue this time. You'll have to find another way to make it happen. I've already decided I'm done being your safety net. I stood up, and just as I was about to leave, my dad, looking defeated, spoke. Ella, please don't do this. I didn't say another word. I walked out, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction, but I knew this wasn't over. They had no idea what I was about to do next. I didn't say another word. I walked out, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction, but I knew this wasn't over. They had no idea what I was about to do next. For the next few days, I let the silence hang between us. My parents sent me messages, of course, but I didn't bother reading them. They were all the same, pleas for me to come back, to forgive them, to be the family I once was. Honestly, it felt good to finally not respond, to not feel like I owed them an explanation. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. One evening, about a week after the confrontation, I was sitting at home, scrolling through some emails, when I got a call from my dad. I stared at the phone, hesitation in my chest. Part of me wanted to just let it ring out, but another part, a part one couldn't ignore, knew this was the moment. The moment where things would either break completely or take a different turn. I answered. Ella, my dad said, his voice trembling just enough to make me pause. We need to talk. About what? I replied, trying to keep my tone as calm as possible, though my heart was racing. You know, I, I'm sorry for what happened, but we've been talking. Your mother and I. We can't just sit back and let you throw everything away like this. You're part of this family. You owe us. His voice had that familiar edge to it, that one that always tried to make me feel guilty, like I was the one causing the problems. I almost laughed, but I bit it back. I don't owe you anything. You've used me for years, and I'm done with it. This isn't about family. It's about you being upset that your free ride just ended. There was a long pause. I could hear him sigh heavily on the other end. Ella, we've had a plan. A big plan. Something we were going to share with you after we got back from our trip. But I guess it's pointless now. I narrowed my eyes, unsure whether I should feel alarmed or amused. A plan? What? You're going to try to guilt trip me into coming with you on your next vacation? No, he replied, his voice turning serious. It's more than that. We were going to give you a percentage of the inheritance early. We know you've been struggling, and we thought you might want to use it to get yourself back on track. But now? Forget it. I froze. My brain struggled to process what he was saying. An inheritance? Early? Wait, I said slowly. You were going to give me money? After all of this? There was an almost bitter laugh on the other end of the line. We didn't want you to feel like we only saw you as a cash cow, Ella. We thought maybe this would help you understand that we cared about you. I sat there for a second, stunned. The audacity. The absolute nerve of them. After everything, they thought money would be enough to fix it? They thought I would cave just because they were throwing some cash my way. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay steady. Keep your inheritance. It's too little, too late. You can't buy me back, not this time. You'll regret this, my dad spat. We won't be here forever. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you lost. I hung up, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. But I knew that wasn't the end. Oh no. They wouldn't let me walk away that easily. I was right. A few days later, as I was sitting on my couch, minding my own business, I got an email. At first, I thought it was from work or maybe spam, but when I opened it, my stomach dropped. The subject line was simple. We need to talk about this. It was from my mother. I opened it. It was a long message, full of anger and hurt. But what caught my attention was the last line. You'll see just how much family means when we're gone. I didn't understand. What did she mean by that? I checked my phone, but there were no calls, no messages. Still, the weight of that sentence lingered. When we're gone. Then, something clicked. They were going to cut me out. They were going to make me the villain in all of this, and they were going to play the victim. They were going to turn every friend, every relative, against me if they had to. They weren't just mad that I refused to pay for their vacation anymore. They were hurt because they lost their source of income. And they were going to make sure I felt the consequences of it. I wasn't going to let them. Not this time. If they wanted to play dirty, I was ready to fight back. A week later, I saw a post from my mom. It was on Facebook, shared with all of our family and friends. It was a picture of my parents smiling at a resort, holding drinks in their hands. But the caption? That was the kicker. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way that family doesn't always have your back. Just because you give doesn't mean you'll receive. Be careful who you trust. I stared at it for a while, the words sinking in. They weren't just trying to punish me. They were trying to publicly shame me, make me look like the bad guy in front of everyone. And that was where they made their mistake. Because now, I had a plan. I stared at my mom's Facebook post, feeling my anger simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about the vacation anymore. They were playing dirty, trying to paint me as the villain in front of everyone. It hit me hard, but I wasn't about to let them get away with it. I knew what I had to do. I spent the next couple of days pulling everything together. I had all the evidence I needed. Text messages, bank statements, and emails. Everything that showed just how much I had given them over the years. They'd been more than just entitled. They'd been manipulative, using guilt to get me to pay for their vacations, their bills, everything. But now I had the receipts, and I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, I shared a post of my OWNIT was a simple status with a picture of my parents at one of their previous vacations, the same one my mom had posted, but with a twist. I attached a screenshot of a text message from my dad where he literally said, "She won't mind paying for the trip. It's her job to help us." Then I added the message, "To everyone who's been wondering what's really been going on with my family lately, here's the truth. For years, I've been paying for vacations, bills, and things that I wasn't even asked for. It wasn't out of love. It was because I was guilt and manipulated. I'm done. No one gets to use me anymore. The post went up, and within hours, it was shared by dozens of family members and friends. People I hadn't even heard from in years were messaging me, asking what had happened. Some were supportive, others were shocked. But the most important part? My parents couldn't escape it. The fallout was almost immediate. Why, Mom called me, frantic. What did you do? She demanded, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. You've ruined everything. People are asking questions, and now they think we used you. We were helping you. Helping me? I scoffed. You were using me. Don't twist the truth to make yourself look better. The only thing you ever helped me with was enabling me to keep paying for your lives while you ignored mine. She didn't have a comeback for that. She just hung up. But the drama didn't stop there. The entire family was in an uproar, with relatives reaching out, calling me everything from selfish to entitled. My parents were doing damage control, trying to spin things in their favor, but it was clear they couldn't recover from the truth I had exposed. The reality was out, and there was no going back. That a few days later, I got an unexpected call from my uncle, who was one of the few relatives who had always been supportive of me. Ella, I saw your post. You did the right thing, he said, his voice surprisingly calm. We've all known about your parents' manipulation, but no one had the guts to say it. You've got family here who actually cares about you, and will support you, no matter what. Hearing that honestly brought me to tears. I'd always been told that family was supposed to have your back, but until then, I didn't realize just how much support I had from people who truly cared. By the end of the week, my parents had tried to reach out, but this time, I didn't answer. The games they'd been playing for years were finally over. I was done being their cash cow, and I had made sure that everyone knew exactly who they were. The truth had come out, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.